There is something genuinely terrifying about the internet right now. And I don't mean the cruelty of it. Cruelty have always existed online in some form. What terrifies me more is how quickly people are forgetting how to pause, how to take a break, how to actually analyze things. A single screenshot, a single sentence, a badly cropped piece of context, and suddenly thousands of people feel emotionally certain enough to destroy someone, not discuss them, not criticize them, destroy them. And honestly, I think we are slowly losing our ability to tolerate complexity altogether. Hi, I'm Srishtha, and welcome to the first episode of Chaos Control Club, a space where we slow things down long enough to actually think about them. And today, I want to talk about something that has been deeply unsettling me lately: the internet's growing inability to hold nuance. Lately, I keep noticing how every conversation online immediately turns into a moral emergency, how disagreement transforms into condemnation almost instantly, how every opinion has to be publicly evaluated, sorted into categories of good or evil, safe or problematic, with almost no room left for contradiction, context, or uncertainty. And maybe that sounds dramatic, but I genuinely think social media has fundamentally changed the way people understand morality. Recently, RF Wong started receiving backlash online because an excerpt from her upcoming novel, Taipei Story, mentioned an Israeli pianist, not a politician, not propaganda, not some explicit ideological statement, just an Israeli character existing inside fiction. And somehow that became enough for people to begin canceling her online. And before anything else, I need to make something very clear because the internet has completely lost the ability to hold two thoughts together at once. What is happening in Palestine, specifically in Gaza, is horrifying. The violence, displacement, death of innocent civilians, it is devastating to witness. Anyone with empathy and basic humanity should feel disturbed by it. That should not even be controversial to say. But governments are not the same thing as people. And it genuinely scares me that this has become such a difficult distinction for people online, offline, in the general course of life to understand, to believe. Not every American supports Trump. Not every Indian supports Modi. Not every Israeli supports Netanyahu. Human beings are not ideological hive minds. People disagree with governments all the time. They protest them, resist them, criticize them, leave them, fight against them. And yet the inherent internet increasingly behaves as though nationality itself has become some kind of a moral contamination. And what unsettles me is not just the outrage itself, it's the speed of it. Nobody pauses anymore, nobody reads carefully, nobody waits long enough to fully understand what they are reacting to. A screenshot appears, a sentence gets detached from context, and suddenly thousands of people are participating in a digital public execution before they have even processed what they are angry about. And I think part of this is because morality online is no longer something quiet or personal. It has become performance, visibility, branding. People don't just express opinions anymore, they display them, curate them, signal them publicly so everyone knows they are on the correct side. And once morality becomes performance, outrage becomes social currency. The more visibly angry you are, the more morally aware you appear. The more aggressively you condemn someone, the more righteous you seem. And social media platforms absolutely thrive on this because algorithms do not reward careful thought, they reward emotional intensity. Outrage spreads faster than nuance ever will. Certainty spreads faster than curiosity. Anger spreads faster than empathy because Empathy is slow. Empathy requires context, patience, humility. And the internet is structurally designed against all three of these. French philosopher Guy Debord once wrote about something called the society of spectacle, where life slowly transforms into performance instead of lived experience. And honestly, sometimes the internet feels like the final form of that idea. Everything is spectacle now, even activism, even empathy, even grief, especially grief. A genocide appears beside a skincare routine, a war crime beside celebrity gossip, a meme beside mass death, book controversy beside someone's morning coffee vlog. Everything flattened into the same endless scrollable feed. And I genuinely do not think the human nervous system was designed for this. We were never meant to process tragedy and entertainment at the same speed. And I think after enough exposure, emotional exhaustion starts distinguishing itself as moral awareness. People stop processing things deeply, they just react. Because when every single thing arrives with the same emotional urgency, the brain slowly loses its sense of proportion. Everything begins to feel equally important, equally immediate, equally catastrophic. And nowhere does this become more obvious than in the creative spaces, because literature is supposed to be messy, contradictory, uncomfortable, human. Fiction is not supposed to function as ideological instruction manuals or textbooks where every character perfectly represents moral purity. The purpose of art has never been to comfort ideology. The purpose of art is to explore humanity honestly. And honest humanity is messy. It is supposed to be that way. Sometimes contradictory, sometimes emotionally inconsistent, sometimes politically uncomfortable. But the internet increasingly wants fiction to become morally sanitized, safe, predictable, ideologically approved. And the moment art becomes terrified of ambiguity, it stops becoming art, it becomes propaganda. And the irony is that RF Wong herself has publicly supported pro Palestinian initiatives before. But once outrage begins online, context becomes irrelevant. People stop searching for understanding and start searching for confirmation. They look for evidence that justifies the emotional conclusion they already arrived at. And honestly, I think this goes far beyond books. A while ago, Ali Hazelwood temporarily stepped away from Instagram because people were attacking her over a joke about preferring Gail over Peter from the Hunger Games. And you all know, I love Hunger Games. So I I was so shocked at the knowledge of this. And this sounds absurd when you say it out loud, right? That someone, a grown woman, receives massive hate online over a fictional love triangle preference. But I think moments like this reveal something much darker about internet culture. People no longer know how to react proportionally. Everything escalates instantly because platforms are designed to emotionally intensify each and every interaction. And when people spend enough time inside these environments, they slowly lose their tolerance for ambiguity altogether. Everything out there becomes binary: good or evil, safe or dangerous, problematic or unproblematic, white or black, no gray, never a gray. And human beings simply do not work that way. We are always gray. People are contradictory, emotionally inconsistent, constantly evolving. No one is perfectly ideologically coherent all the time. Not me, not you, not the people screaming online either. But social media leaves no room for contradiction because Contradiction performs badly, certainty performs better. You have to have everything figured out. And I think one of the saddest consequences of this is that people are becoming afraid of thinking out loud, afraid of asking questions imperfectly, afraid of changing their minds publicly, because the internet increasingly treats being wrong as a moral failure instead of a natural part of being a human. As so instead of honest conversations, everyone becomes defensive, careful, hyper aware of saying the right thing all the time. And fear is a terrible environment for thought. Fear kills curiosity, fear kills experimentation, fear kills honesty, especially in creative spaces. And honestly, I catch myself doing this too sometimes, reacting emotionally before fully understanding something, feeling pulled into outrage before I have ever even had a proper moment or enough time to think critically. Because none of us are immune to this environment. I am on my phone constantly, just like everyone else on this planet right now. That's what makes it so dangerous. The internet rewards immediacy so aggressively that slowing down, not keeping up with the consistency game, almost starts feeling unnatural. But I genuinely think one of the most radical things we can still do online is pause, take a moment to think about it, to resist this pleasure of instantly reacting and instantly getting this dopamine hit every 60 seconds, instantly condemn, instantly perform certainty about, about every issue before we even had time to sit with it. This needs to stop, to allow ourselves humility, to admit that maybe we do not fully understand everything immediately. It takes time, it takes our brain some breathing room to actually analyze how we feel about it. Because accountability and public shaming are not the same thing. Criticism and dehumanization are not the same thing. And lately, the internet seems increasingly incapable of telling those things apart. I don't think the solution is becoming emotionless online. I don't think accountability is wrong. There are these are the conversations worth having, worth discussing, systems worth criticizing, harm worth addressing too. But I think we desperately need to relearn the difference between reacting and understanding something and analyzing it. We need to relearn patience, the ability to sit with discomfort before immediately turning it into certainty, the ability to encounter complexity without panicking, the ability to say, I don't fully understand this yet. Because uncertainty performs badly online, nuance performs badly, complexity performs badly, but human beings are complex. Human reality is complex. And if we completely lose our ability to see each other as layered, contradictory, evolving people, then eventually every conversation becomes impossible. And maybe the most exhausting part is how impossible it has become to hold nuanced positions publicly. The moment you criticize one thing, people assume you support the opposite. The moment you ask for complexity, people think you are excusing harm. Everything gets flattened into ideological terms because the internet no longer encourages thought. It encourages alliance, it encourages allegiance. But human reality is bigger than that. And maybe the next time you see outrage unfolding online, before reposting, before condemning, before adding a comment to it before joining the performance, we pause for a second. We read more carefully. We ask more questions. We leave room for the possibility that reality might be more complicated than just a screenshot. Because compassion without thought becomes performance. And thought without compassion is absolute cruelty. And honestly, I think one of the most human things we can do, still do online, is allow each other the dignity to be complex, to be layered, to have the nuance, and at last, to be tolerant.